Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another deck profile. I'm here with Nick Larson, who topped the Gamerz event this weekend with Tien. What's going on, Nick?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Just trying to keep green alive in this meta. It's pretty hard when green's getting power crept out of everything. Master Roshi taking a hit kind of kept green out of the format, but I'm here to try and see if that doesn't make a difference at all.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, I've been talking a lot about Tien, both on the channel and the Patreon. I think it's a really, really strong take on green. I don't feel like enough people are playing it. I think it's a really, really strong green deck, at least for like green generic toolbox. Like obviously you have your reboot Gohans, the best of three, your Majin Vegetas, and your occasional Turles and green Gotenks. But yeah, I feel like Tien is a really strong generic toolbox deck. So what made you want to play it in the first place?
So Tien offers just a unique playstyle with having World Tournament able to be played in with the deck. So you're able to have a one-drop like Trading Blows to be played inside the deck. And then it also creates a very unique aggro to the deck where you can basically turn 3 the SCR of choice, which we'll see later on. And his Awaken ability pretty much allows you to get 3 more cards in your hand. And I felt like in this meta, having a more extension into your combo power, it'll help you out with decks like Launch, like King Piccolo, which they attack you with basically 15Ks. So when you're on your backside, you basically have an extension of 5Ks to be able to be used just so you can help defend. Plus, as you can see throughout the video, you'll see all of my card choices, which will help in this meta.
Yeah, that Awaken with the tokens, you can almost look at it as like awakening and getting a free super combo. It's pretty insane to get the free 15k power. So starting off, we have 2 Chaozu Unwanted Reunion and 2 Tien trading moves. I like this engine a lot. You don't really have to play the full Tao stuff. The regular Tao stuff, in my opinion, costs way too much energy and takes a lot of setup. But having the Chaozu for free, search on turn 1, playing that, blocking, or getting rid of it another way, we'll see in just a second. And then getting a free 15k body, super good. And then like you said, the Trading Blows Goku, because you're a World Tournament leader, you're able to just apply a lot of pressure to your opponent's hand. So would you say this was like a standard hand control deck, or would you say it was somewhere in the middle of like a green mid-range, like green hand control?
So Tien offers like a weird playstyle for a green deck. I feel like this is more of a board control deck with like the unique hand control aspect that green offers. Basically, Trading Blows is pretty much a hand control card, which in some matchups you're just going to jam this down on turn 1 instead of playing the Chaozu. Most of the tournament, I ended up playing Trading Blows a lot more often on turn 1 than I did the Chaozu. And in the King Piccolo matchup and like Invoker matchup, which I didn't see both of those this weekend, you're going to want to make sure that you keep your opponent's hand down to as a minimum to where you can actually attempt to go for game whenever you feel like playing the 3-drop Tien, then the 4-drop Goku, and then the 5-drop Tien. Because pretty much as soon as you go into your Goku and Tien package, you're going for game. And if your opponent's hand is at least kept down to a minimum, then you feel confident going into your kill turn.
For sure, yeah. I agree with that too. I do feel like I feel like Tien does offer a bit of everything, a bit of board control, a bit of hand control, and just generally strong boss monsters. I agree with that. So yeah, here's the main line of play. So you do have the Goku long-awaited rematch and Tien long-awaited rematch, and it curves you perfectly into Cell Xeno because you have the 3-drop Tien we just saw, and then the 4-drop and the 5-drop that, easily make 12. So as soon as you drop all that, you're able to go into Cell Xeno super easily. So how often was Cell Xeno winning you games? And you mentioned like turn 3 Cell Xeno. So is that what you were trying to do most of the time?
So I actually only casted Cell Xeno once the whole weekend, which is crazy with this deck. And the reason being is I kept playing a bunch of decks that I just weren't like, I didn't actually prepare for those specific decks for this combo. And so like round 1 I played Dark Broly. Round 2 I played a Hatch matchup. 3 I played Majin Vegeta. 4 Reboot Gohan. 5 Blue Baby. And then 6 I played Bulma on stream. Pretty much all of those decks, like, they're able to deal with something on your board so that Cell Xeno doesn't come out on turn 3. And so the Majin Vegeta matchup is the only one I was able to actually use Cell Xeno against, because he basically just went down to such a low life to where I was able to cast Cell Xeno on turn 4 for the kill turn. I basically was just playing both round 3 and 4 very defensive against both of those aggro decks with Majin Vegeta and Reboot. Reboot Gohan, I had the chance to cast Cell Xeno, but I didn't realize that my opponent was down at so low life that I just killed him with the 25k triple strike Goku.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it's really cool anyway that you still won the majority of your rounds without needing to use Cell Xeno though. So I think that's still a really cool thing, because sometimes people will say, oh, a deck like this or a deck like Majin Vegeta, oh, you need Cell Xeno to win. That's like your only win con. But realistically, Tien offers a lot of really strong boss monsters with the long-awaited rematch package, which I think is pretty cool. And then we have the main unison in the deck. I love this pick here. SS Bardock, Paternal Unison. This is, in my opinion, the best unison you can play with the deck, because you have several 1-drops that you play for value, like Chaozu and the 1-drop Goku. So by activating the +1 and KOing either of them, you're ripping your opponent's hand further, but also with Chaozu, you're getting that Tien into play. So it's literally like you're ripping their hand for absolutely free. Normally it's, with Bardock, you're trading a card from yourself and trading a card with your opponent, but with Chaozu, it's just super free. 3 charismatic villain for me is a bit surprising. Were you just trying to fit other cards into the deck? Is that why you went down to 3 on this guy?
So I actually said it in my deck profile I put on the Universe Z channel. I actually couldn't find my 4th one, and so I had to just put in a slot. So the Unison, the Vegeta Resolute Agent of Destruction actually took the spot for the 4th charismatic villain, just because I couldn't find the other one that I had. So I just went with 3, and surprisingly, it actually worked really well. Actually, only seeing 3, I only needed 2 to make a difference in all of my matchups. And most of the time when in this meta, most cards have barrier to where you're not going to be able to play charismatic villain effectively. I only KO'd 2 cards with Frieza, but I basically used it just as if somebody used Fu Shrouded against me, I played the card just so that I had an extra piece of combo that I needed in case your super combos are turned off. And the super combo I played didn't matter, but if I have an extension of either an attack or a combo against the follow-up turn, because that's actually how I won my Hatch matchup, was he played Fu Shrouded on me, but I used Frieza's charismatic villain to play ahead of time so that I had an extra attacker to go for the game-ending swing.
Gotcha. Yeah, nice play. Just establishing board presence while you're able to. Definitely a solid play. And then we have a little Universe 2 package here. So 2 Kakunsa Feral Fury, 2 Kakunsa Beastly Maiden, 2 Rosie Blast Manipulator, and 2 Rebrand Punishing Passion. So I actually play all these cards in my list except for the Rebrand. I think that Rebrand is just a little bit awkward in the deck because there's not too many natural discard outlets for it to get to the drop area. 2 energy sometimes also quite a bit. But how do these cards work out for you? Would you change anything, or do they work out fine?
So I think going forward, I'm probably going to take out the 1-drop Kakunsa just for, I don't think that this card is great and all, because having another version of Basil in the meta is good, and it's also another card to pop off of the Bardock. But the effect of getting 20k double strike really didn't come up as often as I did. It won me a game against Reboot Gohan, but using it as a 1-drop cantrip probably was the only thing that I used it for, and then that was it. Most people got rid of it before it even made a difference before using the effect. The Rosie, the 3-drop Rosie is actually really good for this deck when you go for a kill turn. So I actually, in my baby matchup, I played this card, and he was forced to discard 2 negates because this since it has deflect, he tried to use Diabolic Parasite and it didn't work. So then he ended up discarding 2 Dimension Magic, which ultimately won me the game because he ended up not having Baby Hatch. So he had to use 2 Revenge Big Bangs, and then he had no more negates in hand for the last swing of the Rosie, which actually won me that game. The Ribrianne basically is just a staple for green for me. I was mostly using it just as discard fodder, and all my games going from like all the control matchups, I actually used Ribrianne a lot going into the games more than often, and also pieces well with a card that is in my utility with the Goku that comes out when your opponent discards, and it's just a 15k crit. So basically, Ribrianne adds like an extra like pressure to their hand, especially if you pair it with Rosie that's discarding 4 cards already, and then they have to deal with all of your board. Because if you already have the Tien and Goku package set up, the Ribrianne can be devastating because you board wiped your opponent, and then now they have to basically decide what they're going to do against all those attacks. And if you take 2 more cards out of their hand, they're ultimately thinking of how they're going to get out of your game-ending swings.
I see. Very cool. And then for some utility, we do have the 4 Defending Father Paragus. We have 2 Cells, Earth Destroying Kamehameha, and then the 2 Goku Power of Legend. You already kind of mentioned that. I definitely like this engine a lot. I mean, obviously, Paragus is a 4 of. You got to play 4 of some super combo. I like a lot of people will say like, oh, you can play Bionic Blitz because you're an aspect of a hand control deck, but I think just being able to dig further through your own deck is really good, especially when your leader doesn't quite cycle super quickly. I think that's a really good choice there. And then for some of our defensive extra cards, we have 2 Preemptive Strike, 2 Shocking Death Ball, and 1 Homicidal Clones. I am definitely curious why you decided to include Preemptive Strike in the main. Why don't you explain that?
So green, I think, ultimately has a problem going against Invoker, and Preemptive Strike was my only main deck option against something like Invoker, because once they play Rival Seeker, as soon as it's established, pretty much like the game's over. And Rival, if they don't choose to look at my hand, I can just easily slap down Preemptive Strike, and then they just sit there and like have to go back a turn, and then I can just easily play my chain and go in for game after that. So I never played an Invoker, which really sucked because I was really wanting to catch people off guard with Preemptive Strike. I actually did use Preemptive Strike against Baby. In game 2, he tried to use I'm trying to remember what it's the 4-drop where you look at the bottom card or whatever to play it, and he tried to bring it into play, and I just Preemptive Striked it. And he was like, oh, I just paid 3 energy to basically like lose a card.
Gotcha. And moving along, we do have the 1 Vegeta Resolute Agent of Destruction. Like you mentioned, that was the replacement for Charismatic Villain. And the 1 Gohan Hidden Might, the 2 Announcer Play Pro. The 2 there is actually kind of difficult to see, my bad. And then the 1 Fu Shrouded in Mystery to wrap up some longer games. So overall, that's the main board. We'll go over to the side deck now, and I'll kind of let you just walk us through the sideboard and your choices there.
Okay, so pretty much the basic options. So you have 2 Secret Identity. Secret Identity is just able to clear up anything that's like blocker related. So like against Bulma, against Sin Shenron if they use any of the higher up package. And then we have the 2 Max Power, basically to eliminate any high energy costed cards that are on the board. 2 Vegetas, obviously this is pretty much a staple for every color if you go against blue. The 2 Blue Impulse, basically this was for playing against Blue Baby and playing against Mecha. Mecha likes to play a lot of stuff during your turn because they want to shut down pretty much what you're doing. So if you use this card against them, it board wipes them. The Hidden Power East Supreme Kai was in the sideboard for me just because I wasn't able to fit it into the main board and like mess with consistency. And basically you're pressuring with a bunch of cards that are like the Rosie's triple attack, the Goku is crit. You have a bunch of cards that basically that East Kai can just threaten your opponent with. The 1 Fu Dark Banisher was basically just for Dark Broly. Dark Broly really hates this card because every time they use their leader ability, they have to warp 1. So they pretty much use up their hand just to combo out of attacks. BMS pretty much is a staple in this format for anything that is played. It hits King Piccolo, it hits Actually hits Sin Shenron aggro, which I never even played against that deck either. And the two meta coolers are just for if I need to see more cards, and the tokens really hit hard against decks like King Piccolo. So King Piccolo, who like to protect their life, and if they don't get to their Awaken side early because you're going to be using the Bardock Paternal Unison to take out all of their combos, you basically are now just pressuring them with 15k tokens after you get their hand whittled down. And then the Goku Solar Flare, pretty much this was if any blocker deck got really out of hand. So like if Bulma got out of hand, because I know sometimes they play the Earthling package, you're able to use its activate main to say that any of those blockers can't activate, so you can go safely and attack their leader or a Unison without having to worry about them benefiting off of it.
Very cool. All right, Nick, I appreciate you taking the time to go through the deck with us. Any final shout outs you want to get out there?
I want to shout out to Gamerz for them holding an IRL event. I know it's pretty scary to try and hold in-person events because of what's going on, but hopefully we're in the back end of it and we're going to get back to normal. Shout out to my team, Universe Z, basically being able to prepare me for any kind of matchup that I go through. And shout out to you for having me on the channel.
Very cool, man. Thank you. We'll see you next time.